Hello and welcome. I'm Joe, the electric scooter guy. Today we're going to take a closer look at the Segway Ninebot E2 Pro. And we're going to compare it to a couple of other scooters, the new KQi 2 Pro and the Hover One Journey Max, the scooter that I own. And we're going to take a look at the scooters a little bit closer up. I'm going to go into each one of the manufacturer's sites and try to see what we can find out more about the scooter, and then see how it compares to the data that I've collected, and once again how it compares to these other two scooters. So shouldn't be too long of a video. Let's go ahead and dive in. So the Ninebot E2 Pro from Segway is one of the newer scooters from them. It's getting a lot of hype. It's competitively priced, as you can tell, and with decent quality and specs. So let's just take a look here at the scooter. It's got a center display here. Looks like turn signals, a decent design. Here's another view. It's got the bar in turn signals, which is common with the Segways. Here's a rear view of that. You have a right thumb throttle over here, a bell. Here's another angle. It says it gets 15.5 miles per hour max speed, theoretical range 24.9, almost about 25. Rear wheel drive with a max power of 750 watts. And I believe that's a nominal 350 watt motor. It says it's got up to 18% easy hill climbing, anti-skid traction control, and 10-inch air leakage proof tubeless tires. So tubeless tires, 10-inch tubeless tires, 2 brakes, front drum, and a rear electronic brake or rear brake. Built-in front and rear indicators for a safe commuting. I guess these here light up as well, the reflectors. So it says a smooth and stable ride on any road. I don't think it has any suspension. The tires are a little bigger and they're tubeless, so you can play with the PSI to try to get a smoother ride that way. That will decrease your range though. So 750 watts max peak power, rear wheel drive. You got the indicator buttons here, and of course out on the edges you have the actual indicators. It says there's a puncture-proof tubeless design. I did see a video on that showed that it's not as puncture resistant as it claims. They were able to puncture it with a tack, and air did escape until they repaired it. So that didn't seem to be the case at all. It says water resistant. IPX4, which is like the lowest that I've seen, but it does say the battery is IPX6, so it's the other components that are more susceptible to the water damage, not the battery. The specs here, tilt and net weight at 41. That's what we got there. Really close. Max payload 265. That's correct. From what I can see, rider height anywhere from 4.5 to 6.5. I'm sure that's subjective. Operating temperature to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems pretty good, although I've seen some Segways have problems overheating. Once again, IPX4. The battery is a 36 volts as opposed to 48. Charging temperature is up to 113. $7,650 milliamp hours for the battery. Got a BMS system. Once again, 10-inch tires. It's a recommended tire pressure of 45, give or take 3, so 42, between 42 and 48 is what they recommend. Yeah, smoother ride, in my opinion, would be close to 42, and you get a little bit more range with the 48, but you'll sacrifice comfortability. And considering it doesn't have a suspension system, probably 42 would be closer to where I would probably keep it. Keep in mind though, they are tubeless, so you don't have to worry about pinch flats, but I have heard problems with cracked rims and bent rims and so forth, even on the tubeless tires, if you hit a pothole or curb while riding. So they have free shipping and returns, which is good. Let's take a closer look at the return policy. Just to compare it to others, I don't necessarily agree that it's spectacular. I prefer to order from Amazon because I know they'll watch out for me. So a lot of some of them will say you cannot return a scooter that's been used at all. If you just take it out of the box and you don't like it, you can send it back, see something you don't like. But even if you test ride it and something's wrong, you're probably going to have to look to get it fixed and not returned. For go-karts, it says 15% restocking fee, which can be significant. Yep, see, so products must be in their original new, non-damaged, and unopened condition. I don't know how they expect you to not open it. If damages to products box due to shipments from us, that will not affect the return. Okay. So it must be original, new, non-damaged, and unopened. I assume that means unused. And once again, if you take it out and ride it, they're probably not going to take it back. Anyway, you can look over more of that on your own time. I just kind of wanted to glance at that real quick. These are some related products from Segway and so forth. So that is going to have like the what I'm going to do for the overview for that. Let's move on to the new KQi 2 Pro, and it was more competitively priced with the Segway E2 Pro, and maybe, in my opinion, a little more worth the dough, if I'm being honest. However, at 509, which is a full $60 more than the Segway E2 Pro, I'm having trouble um, seeing the big differences for that amount of money between the two. So, I'm trying to see this here. You've got durable brushless motor, smart BMS lithium battery, no exposed wiring. All the wiring is in the stem. That's nice. Customizable grip tape. Interesting. Smart ride. HD LED display screen. Looks like a nice screen. Max comfort with 10-inch fat tires. Very nice. The video of a guy riding one around. Jump onto a skateboard. It says sleek design, long range, high speed, max comfort, certified safe, and connected and smart. So long range and high speed obviously are comparable to similar price scooters, as opposed to, as probably the same as max comfort. But these are easier to measure. Long range and high speed are objective, and comfort, sleek design, those are objective. So says you get 25 miles per charge, 17.4 miles an hour top speed, 15% uphill climb, and a max power of 600 watts. It does have a cool design. 5 by range anxiety, high speed, 17.5. 10-inch tires, portable, IP54. And to explain that, in case you're not familiar, the 5, the first number is representative of the dust, and the second is the water. So if it's IPX4 and IP54 are the same for water resistance, but has a higher rating, or at least has been rated 5 for dust resistance. This is a battery protection, which has something to do with the BMS. Overcharge protection. App support, battery level, riding stats, and customized for speed. Specs, 22 pounds, rider weight, vehicle about 40 pounds, front drum brakes and regenerative braking, front and rear LED and side reflectors. Does this one have turn signals? I don't think it does. Not common for this price range though. Ride modes, four ride modes: safe, sport, custom, and pedestrian. 10-inch wheels, LED dashboard, IP54, 48-volt battery, exposed to 36, 365 watt hours, and battery charge time about 7 hours. Rated power is 300 watts, max power is 600. So that means there's a nominal rating in the rear motor of 300 watts. A pretty nice scooter in general. It's got a 48-volt battery, which should lead to and at the very least longevity, in my opinion. Considering it's the same weight, you're pushing the same weight um, on the scooters. Um, there's a little more power and so forth in the other one, but we'll get to that. Let's take a look at the Hover One Journey Max. This is the scooter I have, although I have a black one. I am on the Hover One Journey Max website, which has these listed at $5.99, but Amazon has them for $4.43 for the white one. The black one is, I think, $4.90, almost $500 at the moment on Amazon. So, take a quick look. The Hover One is dual motors. Pretty simple display, but it's got color and it's not that difficult to see. Sometimes you do have, if the sun's too bright, it can be difficult to see some of these smaller things like the battery, but speed is always very visible. You got your thumb throttle here on the right and the power button inside the thumb throttle there. These are standard rubber grips. They don't move too much, but I replace them right away. I used to do that on my bicycles too. I just tried to get my own grips. So I replace them immediately. Plus, I have mirrors that go into the ends here, so I could cut that out or just get grips that have a hole, which is what I did for the ones that I have mirrors for. So I prefer just get new grips. Pretty simple. Here's the locking mechanism that you fold down to. Here's the only one brake, which is a little touchy, but very effective, and in my opinion, not very difficult to get used to. The throttle's a little jumpy too, but it's also got fast acceleration. So if you once again get prepared for it, you're not going to feel like you're getting thrown off. You lean forward and you get some decent acceleration as you go. The light is not too spectacular, but I've seen worse. So it does the job for little small trips. If it's dark out, I wouldn't go too far without getting a better light if you want to do any serious riding. There is no LED strips or anything. It's a fairly inexpensive scooter with a lot of performance, so not too many other things. There's no app at all with the Hover One, so no way to deal with any of that. It's just a basic scooter in that regard. It looks like every other rental scooter almost, but it does not ride like a rental scooter. And that's kind of what I liked about it. So it's got a 700 watt motor, which technically is two 350 watt motors, up to 19 miles an hour. It will go up to just over 20 miles an hour, up to 26 miles of range. I don't know who that's for. I got about 18 miles of range before I started noticing a drop in acceleration. I still was able to get up to top speed, but much slower. The hills I didn't take the hills quite as well, but I still didn't notice like an inability to take the hills, just not as with the acceleration that I'm used to. I've only done that once, and also I want to mention, I've seen some people say that they've only gotten 10 miles out of their Hover One. I'm not sure what they're doing with it. I don't ride around like crazy on it. I do ride around in sport mode, which is the top mode, which you can only get to in dual motor mode. You do have dual motor, rear motor, and front motor, so you have complete control of that, which is nice for a scooter. I paid less than $500 with tax. So that's pretty nice. You may be able to get higher range if you went single motor or something like that. Maybe that's why they're seeing up to 26 miles. I never, like I said, I've gotten 18. But I heard 10, which is, I don't get it, to be honest. I don't know. I weigh about 210, 211 today, so I'm right around 210 at the moment. And like I said, 10 miles is ridiculous. I'll tell you, I go on trips that are on average 7 to 8 miles at a time. And if I only go on one trip that's over 3.5 miles each way, I don't even worry about charging. until the next. I can make 2 trips like that easy. I could probably make 1 trip and a couple of those trips. I mean, I wouldn't say I have to make 3 times that, but I could probably go. In fact, not probably. I most likely could go. If I go one day, a 7 to 8 mile trip, I got 1 battery bar gone. And so I easily can make another trip, which is around 15, 16 miles. So 15, 16 miles, I do it without blinking. Sometimes I'll lose another bar, sometimes I'll lose 2 in there, right in there. And I usually charge after 2 days of use. And so just to be on the safe side. But I did take it one day as a test, and I took it out to 3 different rides or 2 different rides. I went on a normal 7 to 8 mile ride like I normally do, and then I went back out for what was it? I want to say it was 14 miles. I want to say it was supposed to be 14 miles or total 7 there, 7 back, or somewhere close to that. Point is, I did a calculation on all my miles that day, and I came out to about an 18.5 mile ride completely. But about a mile, I will say, ish, on the way back, I started noticing I wasn't getting up to speed as quickly. And on some of these other scooters, that might actually be normal, but for the Hover One with the dual motors, it gets up pretty quickly. So it was definitely noticeable. We have 8.5-inch tube tires, an LED digital display, and a rear disc brake. I have had a flat on one. I attribute that to the design of these hub motors and inner tubes. Inside, it's very difficult to get the inner tube stem to fit very nicely while it's riding. So I check my tires every time before I leave, and it's a little hard to deal with. Sometimes I have to maneuver the stem to get a good grip on it, and I have valve stem extenders. So one day I was riding, and I went over some railroad tracks, and sometimes I walk across, but I do check my air every day and my air on my tires, so I wasn't too concerned. So I did drive over this time. And shortly after, I realized I had a flat. I thought it was just a standard pinch tube where the side of the rim may be cut into the tube. But when I did end up changing the tire, which wasn't incredibly difficult, I've heard people say that some of these can be really difficult. I didn't have too much hard of a time. But when I changed the tube, the only puncture of any kind was the valve stem had a big slice right on the right where it was sitting, in the hole here, and all of the slime, I had put slime to try to treat it for punctures, leaked out the sides, and I thought once again it was because of a pinch flat here, but it made more sense that the stem, because it all just came out with the stem being sliced. It wasn't a back tire. As I said, it wasn't a big deal to get changed. That was pretty easy. I guess it wasn't incredibly easy, but I was expecting the worst, and so it was easier than what I expected. I'll put it that way. Hills are, it's not even, I don't even have to say it. Like, I don't even have to say it. It does such a good job with hills. It's ridiculous. I went up grassy hills, 210 or over, and it kills it. It just kills it. No problems. Hills are just a breeze, and for less than $500 ship, that's crazy. Dual or single motor drive, and that's the reason that I did it. So it says choose from single front, single rear, or engage dual motors, as I said. And I always ride in dual motor mode, which is obviously sport mode, and I get great performance out of it. I don't have a problem getting up and going. I'm sure there's faster scooters out there, but not for the price. Once again, 700 watt dual brushless motors. That's total 350 piece. And it does get up to 20 miles an hour. I would put its effective range at just over 18, 18 and a half, 19 at the most. If you're getting too much past that, I'd be concerned it was going to cut out. I was on the very last battery bar at that point, and when it started slowing down, I was skeptical if I was going to make it, but I made it with no problems. I was still able to get up to speed the entire time. It did not cut off on me, but it might have cut off on me at 20-ish miles is my expectation. But since I personally wouldn't recommend going over that far, I won't give a solid, hey, this is how far you can go, but I can tell you how far I would be comfortable going on these scooters, and it's at least 18 miles, no problem. 36-volt battery, not as big as the new KQi Pro, which is 48, but that seems to matter less on these other things, because I get plenty of range, I get a lot more power, hill climbing is fantastic, and it's only a 36-volt battery. So we got 8.5 inch pneumatic tube tires, as I said, rear disc brakes, overall 4.4. Some people have complaints. The only complaint I have with the scooter as far as expectation was that when it came, it had some rust down here by the stem where it unfolds. It was rusted and had been touched up with touch-up paint down here as well. I did complain about that. I didn't like it, and so I was sent a second scooter, and which I was happy with that. Once again, I dealt with Amazon, so they sent me a second scooter. The second scooter, this front fender was warped and sitting on the front tire, and wouldn't and rubbed when I took it out for the test drive. The other thing is this back cover is cracked. So quality control on these is a little bit lacking. That seems to be true with scooters, electric scooters across the board. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much. I have higher expectations. Amazon made it right with me, and I kept both scooters, and which I didn't have a problem with, considering I only paid for a single scooter, so I kept both scooters. Amazon allowed me to do that. I fixed this myself with a hair dryer. I tried taking it apart, reseating it, everything. It was just warped. It's hard plastic, so I couldn't just manipulate it without putting heat on it. So I heated it up, pulled it away. It's still fairly close, but it doesn't rub, and there's a crimp right here from me having to pull it away. So none of these problems, kept the scooter from riding, but that rust is going to continue to be a problem, as rust is. That's never going to completely go away. So maybe I could sand it down. I'm not doing all that for this scooter. So that is pretty much what we're going to talk about for the Hover One. Let's go over here and take a look at some of the stats that I have over here pulled up. So the E2 Pro is at 449, 16 miles of range. This is tested. Top speed is at 15 and a half. 0 to 15 is almost 7.5. Weight is 41. Max weight is 265. Power is 350 on one motor, so forth. So just kind of comparing these, we've got 449, 509, and 443. This was 449 at that price. It's very close. You really flip a coin. I mean, in my opinion, it's really close. They're both tubeless. Very similar water ratings. One has a dust rating, one doesn't. I find these to be very, very close. It does have a larger battery. At 48 volts versus 36 for the Hover One and the E2 Pro. So the 48 volts, in my opinion, should last longer. You're gonna have to, even though the range isn't there, it should be less wear and tear on the battery for recharging, given that it has more volts, a larger battery in that regard. So that's my take. I can't swear to that, but that would be my expectation. That would be the only real benefit from that. Brakes are very similar. Tires, tubeless for the E2 Pro and the KQI Pro tube, but inner tube for the Journey Max. I didn't mind. I don't. It's a little pain. Yeah, I wouldn't want to change this tire on the side of the road. But considering I did have a flat, I rode the scooter back just over a mile on a flat tire after the stem was cut. I rode it back home on a flat. I had to go slow, but the scooter did not have any problems with overheating or performance as far as that goes. I mean, I did ride it slow, so there was no issue. But as far as it still would climb hills, I did it real carefully to make sure I didn't crash or mess anything up on the scooter. I was prepared to have to replace the back tire because it's on me. I rode it on a flat, but after taking the tire off, I washed it off real good. I wanted to make sure there was nothing in there that would keep the new tube from supporting the scooter and airing up correctly. So when I did that, I noticed that everything looked great. It looked like a brand new tire. It felt like a brand new tire. The sidewalls were not weakened whatsoever. And so I put it back on and I've had no problems. So I rode this one. I rode this home on a flat in the back with no issues. Obviously I had to get a new tube, but I was going to have to get a new tube anyway. And I would anyway. If I got a flat that caused me to go flat, I'm not going to repair the tube. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to make sure there's nothing in the tire itself, and then I'm going to put a new tube in. That's what I did most of the time with bikes back in the day. I just replaced the tube. I could patch it up, and I have patched it up, but a lot of times that's a temporary. It's like a Band-Aid, so to speak. And so I didn't really care for that. As far as suspension, none of these have suspension. Is that true? I find that to be puzzling. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then none of them have suspension, and that's just the way it is. So none of them have suspension. These both have tubeless 10-inch tires, which is a little bit better. The range on these are almost identical. I mean, you could split hairs if you wanted to, but 15.7 and 16, no one's going to notice a difference in that. Top speed, the KQI Pro is a tad faster. Possibly that's from the 48 volts, considering it has a lower rated nominal rear motor at 300. So it is a tad bit faster at top speed, however, a tad bit slower at 0 to 15. It's kind of not fair, in my opinion, to bring up the Hover 1 Journey Max, and this is the reason I bought it. Range is over 20. I got it right at 18 for sure, no problem. And then top speed is 20.7. I'll give it that. It reads 22 on my display, but it does get up to over 20 miles an hour easy, no problem. 0 to 15 is 3.8. And I mean, I don't know how you can compare these. 20 miles an hour versus 15 or 16. I ride 15 or 16 all the time, and if I'm on smooth enough pavement and I'm familiar with the area, I'll bump it up to the max. I don't ride around on max everywhere I go. The scooter's not that comfortable, to be honest, to ride like that over a bunch of bumps. And so I have to take it easy over bumps, but considering I have no suspension in here either, that will be the same on those. Or very, very similar, I can promise. And the weight being 45 pounds is less than 3.5 pounds more than the E2 Pro. To me, that just is not significant. It's just not significant enough to give up all that. The max weight is 264. It says it's 265, 220. You can split hairs. I'm pretty sure all three of these will carry roughly the same size rider. In my opinion, obviously, the Journey, the Hover One Journey Max, being significantly better at doing that, in my opinion, regardless of what this max rating says. The 700 watts of power, doubling the highest here, 350 to 700. That's a big deal, especially splitting them up over the front and back. 36 watts of power, but once again, that's feeding two motors, and the performance is incredibly noticeable. Look at the 0 to 15s here. We've got 7.4, 7.6, and 3.8. That's huge. That's huge. And it's obviously noticeable. Obviously noticeable. You're gonna take off when you hit that throttle on the Journey Max. That's just how it goes. That's just how it performs. So I bought it for performance. The tire's a little small, 8.5 versus 10, and I would like larger tires, there's no question. But if I'm considering all these things right here, and when I did consider these things when I was looking, I have a hard time going with a rear motor scooter over a dual motor scooter for the same price. The range is still decent. Technically, you should get less range from a dual motor than a single motor, but that's not the case here. This range is significantly better than anything else here, and top speed is also significantly better. Acceleration significantly better. A tad heavier. The weight, in my opinion, is better here. There's no way these can perform as well as this with a heavier rider because they have dual motors. So, for me, it's a hands down. If I had to rate these, the Hover One, it kills it. It competes too well. What good does it? I mean, I admit it. These scooters look nicer. They're kind of more stylish. I think they both have apps, but none of that helps me get up a hill. None of that helps me get where I want to go, and have good acceleration. Not have to wait forever to get up. If I want to ride in the street and I'm at a stop and I take off, I don't want cars to have to sit behind me. If I jump out there, I don't jump out there in front of cars. If a car does pull up behind me, I try to get over. But the point is, I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting. Let's just say I'm crossing traffic. I'm at a four-way stop. I've done this before. They're waiting on me. I'm a scooter, and they're thinking I'm gonna have to putt across this, and I just punch it. And I'm darting across the street if I'm crossing a roadway at a stop sign, or I don't have a light or a crosswalk, and I need to make a dart across the road. Make sure I get over before cars get closer. It's not a problem. Not a problem at all. And so, personally, I don't see how you could make that decision. That's just me. I don't care how good the scooter looks. If I've got to walk it uphill, it doesn't look that good to me to have to do that. It doesn't have the suspension, so that's something I probably would even if I could find a scooter with suspension at this price point, I wouldn't take it over dual motors. The ride's comfortable, but not when you're walking up a hill, or not when you're running out of range, or can't go as fast as you want to go. 20 miles an hour is not incredibly fast, but for this, once again, for this price point, it's decently fast. You can find some scooters with a better top speed, maybe. Let's just go take a look real quick. This doesn't give me speed, but glancing at some of these, let's see. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough even for speed at that price. That's going to be a tough one. So I will say that I think this is a good price. It competes well. The problem with me is like, okay, well, what if you're not a large person? What if you're not 200 pounds? That's fine. You know, I can't really give a recommendation because I'm not under 200 pounds. I'm not 150 pounds. So I'm never going to be able to say, oh, it's probably better for a 150 pound rider, because even if you're 150 pounds, I still want to go up the hill faster. I don't want to slow down going up the hill. It might do a better job getting up the hill than it would with me because I'm over 200 pounds. But if I'm on my scooter and they're on a real motor scooter, I'm still likely going to beat them up, up the hill, because it just does a great job. It just does a better job. Certainly going to be able to beat them in acceleration. And so those types of things, you know, if you're going to pay, I'm not talking about paying more money to get these performance enhancements. I'm talking about paying the same or less. Right now, it's the cheapest on the list. It's not a Segway. It's not a new, but it's a Hover One. They're reputable. All three of these scooters are UL listed, and so there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with the quality. Some people say that you don't get the build quality, and I'm not sure. You know maybe they're talking about style, which is, once again, that's subjective, and so everyone has a different opinion. Now, obviously, I mean, being subjective or not, I can agree that this looks better than my scooter. It's a bit fancier. However, I'm not paying to walk fancy up a hill, you know. So it doesn't bother me as much that it looks like a rental scooter, because it doesn't look like a rental scooter when I get going. And so people probably wonder, like, is this guy going to be able to make it up the hill? And that's never a problem. So it's a hands down if I'm comparing the Hover One to the other two. If I take that out of the picture, let's say just because you can't stand the rental scooter look and you're not that concerned, you only weigh 150 pounds, you don't mind going 5 miles up the hill per hour, then hey, these scooters, you know, might be for you, but I can't say, because that's not how I look at it. And once again, I'm not 150 pounds, so I'd be happy to review some of these, happy to compare it to what I have and try to take it up the same hills that I ride. I know already it's not going to perform as well, but I'd like to compare it to see if it'd be livable. I go up. I don't measure the hills, but I go up decent hills at 15 plus miles an hour. I don't push the throttle all the way up the hill, only because it'll engage cruise control, and I don't want to get stuck in cruise control up a hill. You get to the top of the hill and cruise control it. So I've never done that, but I always kind of feather the throttle when I'm going uphill, let go, give it more. And like I said, easily on some of the biggest hills, I can get up to 15, 17 miles an hour. If I was keep going, I'm pretty sure I can almost. I never slow down, so it just takes me a little longer, as it does anyone, even in a car, to go up an incline versus a flat surface. So there is a drop in the ability to climb versus a flat surface, but it just doesn't slow down. You know, when you get on a scooter and you're trying to go up and you start, getting up to 5, 6, and it won't get any higher than that. You got to take the rest of the hill at 5 or 6 miles an hour. That's not what I'm not trying to do that. So I'm gaining speed, just not very quickly up the hill. So it's hands down for me. But if I'm looking at the Ninebot E2 Pro versus the new KQi 2 Pro, they're very close, very, very close. You can look, you can say maybe you have a preference over one. I happen to like the way the new looks a little bit better to me, just in general. they're very close. I mean, you can kind of almost split hairs over that. They look very similar. I just kind of like this tad better. Um, but with the price being now $60 difference, the Ninebot is an easy choice. That would be the deciding factor to me if I were considering these two scooters. But if I were considering this one as well, not at $599, but at $443, it'd be a no-brainer, which is why I have one. So I will leave it at that. And if you guys enjoy this content, if it helps you out, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you soon.